And welcome into the Take the North podcast, along with a smiling Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. I'm Mark Grote of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. We had a preseason game, Dan. It was a tie. Thank God it was a tie. I loved hearing at the end of that game the referee remind everybody that there is no longer overtime in the preseason, which, well, I mean, the fans might have wanted overtime, but for everybody else, 24-24 was just fine.
And by the way, that game was moving along at a nice clip for much of the first half. And then the third quarter was interminable, and then it just kept dragging. And we were well past 3 o'clock when the fourth quarter expired. So I think everyone was ready to move on to week 2 of the preseason. Yeah, hey, first time I've ever covered a tie, first Bears tie in a preseason game since the 70s, before I was born. You might have been just a wee toddler at the time.
What was the year? What was the year?
It was 73.
Okay, so I was born in 72, so I was
just
1.
Toddling around when they tied the Miami Dolphins last in the preseason. Look, like fun day overall, I think, because we got to experience a lot of different things from a lot of different perspectives. And again, the end result doesn't matter. And I appreciated some of the players after the game saying that Ben Johnson reminded them before the game, hey, this doesn't count, but it matters. And I thought that was good messaging to just remind the guys that we're going to be out there that there's a lot on the line for a lot of people in this game. And so take your job very, very seriously. And there was some good flashes and moments from the Bears yesterday.
Let's talk about some of those and things that mattered. And look, Caleb Williams did not play in the game, but we'll talk about his pregame workout, which was essentially an unpadded practice for him, where I think he probably got some things done. But it does count when Tyson Bagent is out there, the presumed number 2 quarterback for this team. At least that's the way they seem to be applying it. Case Keenum did play and played very well too. Yeah. Tyson Bagent, Dan, 13 of 19, 103 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Had a sweet 3rd and 15 play to Luther Burden. I talked to Burden about that. I'll share some of his comments, and I had a little one-on-one chat with Burden that I will share with our Take the North audience here in just a second. But Bagent, the problem was with Bagent, and we'll talk about the good. The bad was which was to me a little bit jarring. The slow start, 2 straight 3-and-outs. And the problem is we saw this from Caleb Williams in so many games last year, and the offense in general just stalling early in games. And it made me think, we've been very critical of Caleb Williams, which we should be, which everybody should be real and transparent about what we are seeing. But then I thought to myself, and Emma and I sitting next to each other, Chris Emma, 670thescore.com, we're like, is this a product of the offense just not being ready, as opposed to maybe Caleb Williams is not quite ready? Or put simply, Dan, both?
Yeah, we'll figure it out, right? And this is Ben's first chance in the preseason with a backup quarterback to take him through the paces. And I did think you heard from folks after the game that Bagent's ability to overcome that slow start was encouraging, that he really got locked in the second quarter, in his own words, that they kind of hit the ground running once the second quarter began. You want to get off to a better start. They were backed up on one of those drives, and I think there was a 3rd down pass to Luther Burden that was incomplete. And that's one that I'm looking forward to asking Declan Doyle about today when we hear from him at Haugh about whether Luther could have made a better effort to go get the ball. Seemed like he got a little ball, not a great pass, but he went up with one hand and seemed like he was bracing for a hit before he went up to get the football. And so those are the types of things that the Bears want to iron out. The touchdown drive that Tyson Bagent eventually led, you mentioned one of the 3 plays that I kind of hearted in my notebook, the 3rd and 15 Burden. That's obviously one that really gets it going and keeps your drive moving. There was also a check down inside the red zone to Tyler Scott, which was evidence of one of these plays where this is quarterbacking 101 in the NFL, is just process quickly. If your stuff's not there, go ahead and find what is there. And he was able to hit Tyler Scott for a gain that was important in that role. And then you go for it, obviously, on 4th down, and you trust your quarterback to make a play. And he does. With pressure coming, he's able to progress past his first read, which he said after the game was the speed out to Durham Smythe in the left flat. And then just through that, we've heard it during training camp, the high back 5 ball, right, to Maurice Alexander. And Tyson said, look, I just threw it up there. Anything after that was nothing to do with me, right? And Maurice Alexander went up, made a really nice catch, got his feet down, and you had your first Bears touchdown of the preseason. So those moments are things to build on, and I think you'll hear some of that throughout the week as the Bears push forward. I I think the assumption is that, we'll probably see the starting quarterback on Sunday night against the Bills next week. But all in all, I think 13 for 19, I think it was 103 with a touchdown and interception for Bagent. So steady, but not spectacular.
Yep, those are the same numbers that I have down for him. Hey, it was also nice to just have evidence of Tyler Scott to see him out and around. I mean, this is the time of the season where you see those guys. Defensively, we'll get into that in a second. But real quick, you mentioned that you put was it the smiley face emoji on the?
This was just I'm not back into my usual in-season routine. I said a heart. So I threw a heart this time. Last year it would have been a smiley face.
Okay. But Tyson
or a thumbs up. I don't remember what the emojis were.
Well, you have to work that out with the next
a thumbs up.
The Luther Burden. Luther Burden's an interesting guy. He is a man of few words so far. Like it's interesting at the podium. He's a little more talkative in the locker room. It's just kind of like he's I don't know. I haven't figured out the personality yet, but the substance of it. I asked him, because oftentimes we will ask as reporters on a play, leave it pretty wide open. A what did you see? Question. That's why I said on that 3rd and 15, what did you see? Describe the play, what was going on, and all he said to me was, and it was actually great. He said, I said, what did you see? He said, I saw the sticks. I was just looking for the sticks. That was it. He didn't break down anything else. He's like, sticks, sticks, sticks. And I'm okay with that.
Sticks, football, right? That's the biggest thing on 3rd down. Sticks, football. Sticks. Go get them both. Move the chains. Keep the drive going. I thought one of Burden's best contributions of the day was the last play from the offense in the first half, which was the 6-second situational play where Tyson Bagent hits him for 13 yards and he sprints to the sideline and gets out of bounds to set up that booming Cairo Santos kick. In live action, I actually got up to go get some halftime food when they let the clock run out. And Case Keenum joked after the game, hey, look, our home clock operator's got to be much more itchy with the trigger finger to stop that clock at 2 rather than 0. Like, let's preseason, let's work some of these kinks out. The officials ended up resetting it to 1 second and allowing Cairo Santos to get that kickoff. But that was an encouraging moment for me. Look, like, I understand the Bears only got the ball back there because the Dolphins were playing with a preseason attitude and they didn't kick it away at the end of the half and basically gave the ball back to the Bears with a sack by Zach Pickens. And so it's a turnover on downs, and it gives the Bears an opportunity to run something situationally, which is, hey, maybe in the regular season, we're going to have 6 seconds and trying to get in a field goal range. Can we work on something that allows us to do that? You get this little crosser and Burden with some great decisive sprinting to get across that sideline as fast as possible. And he did it with fractions of a second left. And then we saw a kick from Cairo. And I think for people that have been worried about whether the Bears have a kicker with enough leg, Cairo put a 57-yarder through with plenty of leg on it and seemed pretty pumped about it. And I had talked to him a couple of weeks ago about how much effort he put in this season to changing some things technically, to kicking the ball with more distance and different trajectory. Clearly on one kick on a Sunday afternoon at Soldier Field, it paid off.
It's the longest kick he's ever made, right? I mean,
I think Big said he had a 58-yarder in the preseason against the Chiefs several years ago, but it would have definitely been the longest that he'd ever made in the regular season if it was a regular season game. But good for Cairo, right? And good for the Bears for stealing those 3 points.
Somebody doesn't want the coaching staff to have to feel like they have to go for it on 4th down or punt instead of kicking a field goal. You're right. Hey, if you got one thing to fix, if you're an athlete, and that is a little bit more distance, good for Cairo Santos. Hopefully for his sake, it carries
and also
over.
just think about what that does for Ben to see that, like to understand that, like, okay, now with my own eyes, I watched that kick from the sideline to Soldier Field have plenty of leg from 57, and now I can use that as a frame of reference when we're in game situation in September or October and say, let's give it a try here. I think we've got it here, and have that confidence and the trust in the kicker to do so.
You mentioned Case Keenum. I thought he was really good as well, and I thought he had. I don't know how you feel about it, Dan. If you put a smiley face or a heart on the Case Keenum 15-yard touchdown pass to Jody Walker, I thought that was the best pass of the day right there. And Bagent had a couple nice ones, but that I thought that was the prettiest pass of the day. It was beautiful.
Case Keenum was as good on the post-game podium as he was during the game, which is it's fun. It's fun when you have plays like that to break down, and you're talking about a 37-year-old veteran who's been in the league now, I think 13 years, and has a chance to connect with a undrafted rookie out of Texas A&M playing in his first NFL preseason game. And the play was as sweet as you're going to see. You said it. I mean, it's a great release by Jahdae Walker. It's a great ball by Keenum. It's a great catch in the end zone. And so then you have two guys at very different parts of their NFL career trying to celebrate this moment. And Jahdae Walker gets up and does this really exuberant bouncing dance down the sideline. In case that I tried to join in, I just didn't realize what was going on there. But you felt a guy at the backstage of his career really having a full appreciation for that moment for his receiver. And I thought that was really cool to just hear his heartfelt enthusiasm and admiration for the catch by Jahdae Walker and then the exuberance of the celebration.
He is a man. Listening to that, I was not in the room, but I was listening to you guys. They actually, I didn't realize they piped the press conferences into the press box. I had not been up to the press box that early after a game for so long because I was actually able to leave a little bit earlier. But hearing him, he just sounds like a man who is, and I don't know Case Keenum, I don't know what he was like in the past, but he sounds like a man who is comfortable in his own skin, very happy to be where he is.
Yeah.
Talking about how my kids might be old enough to be conscious of what I'm doing. They got to see, he literally said, they got to see dad throw 2 touchdown passes at Soldier Field. And he made a big deal about that. He talked about how, when we go home, I'm going to throw the ball around in the yard to the kids. He sounds like, and I don't know what this year is going to be like for Case Keenum, but they chose, I think, in terms of mentorship, if nothing else, they have chosen the right guy, it feels like, because he really has accepted his place in Chicago.
No question. I think you described it well there, where you have a guy that has his arms like really wrapped around his current situation, right? And just hugging it because he appreciates the moment. He knows that there's not much left for him, and he's going to maximize every opportunity he has, whether it's a preseason outing in the second half against the Dolphins in August, or whether it's the opportunity to be side by side with Caleb Williams and Tyson Bagent, both of whom he's spoken very highly of since he's gotten here. And so that was fun, right? Like it was fun to see a game like that matter to a guy like that, who obviously has a certain playoff victory on his resume that is pretty significant in that Minneapolis Miracle. And then he goes out on an August Sunday at Soldier Field and really feels like he's having fun and playing the game the way he wants to. And again, like to be able to link up with a guy like Jahdae Walker in that moment, it's just cool. It's one of those things that I always talk about. The third preseason game or the last preseason game is this moment that the common fan just wants it over with because they want to get to the regular season. But when you understand what's at stake for the guys competing in it, you have just this heightened appreciation for what some of this August football is. And that was on display, I thought, Sunday at Soldier Field.
Yeah, you know what is also indicative of that, and this is not something I've ever really talked about, but with these preseason games, you have a flood. Obviously, you have so many more players, so you have a lot of friends and family that are outside the locker room and down in Soldier Field, and we see all these people. And for some, it's just the biggest kick in the world that they get to play at Soldier Field, an undrafted rookie. These families are there. No matter what happens, this is a thrill of a lifetime, and they're probably going out for steak tonight. So that's you're right, man. That's the vibe on the field. There's spectacular things going on with families and players, and like it's like you think of a first preseason game as not emotionally charged. It is actually for a lot of the guys on that sideline.
And I think you experienced that the way I did in the locker room afterwards. Like we're 13 minutes into the pod and we're just getting to Austin Booker, who was, absolutely flashing yesterday. Now, we've seen this before. We saw this in his rookie preseason in 2024. But you get 3 sacks and a forced fumble. And I think it was Noah Sewell who said, yeah, Book had a day, man. Like, it literally amazing. And so you've got a guy trying to find a way up the ladder of the depth chart with the Bears. And one way to do so is to be more consistent and to be more productive. And the production was certainly there Sunday. What I liked most about it, now granted, you put the proper frame around it and say this is against Dolphins reserves, and the degree of difficulty is much harder when you're playing starting offensive tackles in this league. But he did it in 3 different ways, right? Like there's a motor sack, there's a spin move sack, and then there's a hard long arm inside, and then pounce to knock the football away from Quinn Ewers. And so you're like, okay, there's an arsenal here. There's a little bit of an array of things that Austin Booker can do. His point after the game was, I just need to show more consistency, and hopefully that will earn the trust of these coaching staff. But that's certainly the guy that I think walked out of Soldier Field feeling the most juiced up about what he had put on film.
No doubt, no doubt. And I literally asked that question in his press conference. That I try to put it as softly as I could, as like, you had a great preseason last year. How is it going to translate into the regular season this year? And the answer, he didn't really give an answer, and that's fine. But I'm sure, like, he's aware of that fact that everything just went away. But I mean, I don't know, Dan. Like, if we're really going to talk about Austin Booker, some of the people that I spoke to when he came to the Bears out of the draft, a lot of them were like, this is a red shirt guy. This is a guy who's going to need a year to develop and to get right. I didn't believe it because of how well he played in the preseason. But while it wasn't a pure red shirt year, that's kind of the way it played out last year. He was kind of a nothing burger throughout the regular season. And so, hey, man, if they could develop this guy and make this guy grow into a guy who gets 6 or 7 sacks, a handful of sacks, like that DeMarcus Walker, I'd take it.
So what is consistency, right? Like, consistency is coming back out against Buffalo next Sunday and doing something else and stacking good practices and good games. Like, we'll be honest here on this podcast, as we always are. Austin Booker's been edge rusher 5 in training camp. You've got Sweat and Dio starting on the edge, and then you've had a lot of looks for Dom Robinson and Tano Passano, who came in late July or early August and has history, obviously, with Dennis Allen and Ryan Poles. And so Austin Booker has faced a little bit of an uphill climb, but all you can do is take advantage of the opportunities you're given. Certainly did that on Sunday, and it was good to see. And you know, did it please me? No, but it was good to see.
What? Couple other things. So he was really good. Noah Sewell really flashed on that. I think it was the first or second. He had the goal line play. So Sewell is playing for something. Like, people are interested in that extra linebacker, which you shouldn't be that interested in, but it is interesting, I suppose.
But it's a draft pick, right? Like, it's a guy that you're like, okay, we got to start making decisions on some of these Ryan Poles draft picks. And he stayed healthy through camp. And that, 5 tackles on that opening drive that the Dolphins had by Sewell. And the last one is a 3-yard loss on 4th and goal from the 1. You watch that play, Grote, and I wrote it in ChicagoTribune.com. It was like a bullet train through the B gap. He saw it, and he was right through there, and hit Jalen Wright deep in the backfield. And then you saw the reaction of the head coach for the entire defense coming up with that goal line stand down there. We had a flex from Ben Johnson, which was cool. A nice moment, right?
That was cool. That was very cool. All right, Dan, I got to ask you a question because I can't call it on this. Lieutenant. Left tackle Braxton Jones, which is lieutenant to LT, isn't that lieutenant? Lieutenant Braxton Jones started at left tackle, played for a quarter and a half. Is that a good sign that the Bears are thinking about him as the starting left tackle, or is it just because he needed the playing time and he needs a longer look right now?
And Ozzie Trapillo got in there, obviously, and played some too. And they
played a decent amount.
They were mixing T.O. Benedict out there as well at the tackle position with Karan Amagaji still hurt. I don't know what to make of this. Bigsy had something in his 10 thoughts piece today at ChicagoTribune.com about how the goalposts have moved a little bit on this left tackle battle from where they were talking in the spring of, like, we want to get this solved as soon as humanly possible so that we can go into this with a some clarity on who our starting 5 are going to be. And then now last week, Ben Johnson is saying, we don't have to make a decision just yet. There's more we want to see. And so you do have, and I think Ben's sort of message was, look, like, we've got these double crossover practices with the Dolphins and Bills. We have 2 preseason games against the Dolphins and Bills, and then whatever's left for that Kansas City game at the end of the month. These are tests, I think, for these guys to take. And then the coaching staff has to go back and really, go through the film with a fine-tooth comb and figure out what they're seeing. I thought Braxton was shaky at moments yesterday, including on the touchdown pass that we talked about from Tyson Bagent. Rush got home instantly, and Tyson had to react to it and make the throw when he made it. So there's just going to be more that Braxton needs to show, I think, to fully lock this up. And so this is going to be, again, throughout this week, again on Friday when the Bills come to town, and again next Sunday under the bright lights at Soldier Field. We'll get a feel for what the rotation looks like and how those guys are performing. But it doesn't feel like they're as close to a decision as they probably wanted to be when they set this thing up in the summer.
Let's talk about QB1 now. Caleb Williams, who was definitely in effect before the game, along with a bunch of the starters, running plays. They were not in pads or were they in helmets? I don't even remember if they were in helmets, but they're flinging it around out there. As Ben Johnson said, like, I don't think it's as productive as playing or as a real practice, a full padded practice, but he did have those guys out there doing some real work before the game, and that's what he said he was going to do. That was part of the excuse for not playing these guys, that they would get the same work. I don't think it's the same work, Dan, but it did look like they were doing some productive things.
One more tease from me to Big Z's 10 Thoughts column up at chicagotribune.com, because his very first thought this morning was about Caleb's morning, right? Like, there was a game played yesterday, and Brad's first thought was about the 57 minutes he had it counted as before 9 o'clock. Bears had to be off the field by 9 o'clock by league rule with those guys. And so they ran through what was counted up as like an 87 play simulation for Caleb. There were 5 pass catchers out there, a combination of receivers, tight ends, and backs. And it was Caleb calling the plays with Ben by his side to one of the pass catchers, and then, simulating the motions and shift before the play, and then turning it loose and throwing it around. And so Ben's counter argument to everybody who was vehemently pushing back on why can't he play in a preseason game, Joe Burrow's doing it, Patrick Mahomes is doing it, was just like, we have other ways to get him his work. And just because you can't see it, as we talked about last week, just because you can't see it on your television screen doesn't mean it's not happening. And so they felt like this was an alternative to get Caleb 4 or 5 times the volume of work on Sunday than he would have gotten if he had played the first quarter. And they think they got some productive stuff in. Now, listen, like, I understand the pushback. I'm like, hey, doesn't he need the game operation to get himself ready for the regular season? I would figure that would come this week. But they've decided to go in a different direction, and they feel like they've been productive with it. And Ben, I thought after the game was like very heartfelt with how he felt the morning went in terms of productivity and getting that volume to get the quarterback flowing.
Yeah, and Ben Johnson is perfect so far. He's done nothing to disappoint anybody as of yet. That's just it. This is truly the honeymoon. However, and I agree with everything you said. They got work in, and I'm not that emotional over the fact that he didn't play. I'm surprised he didn't play, though. I'm surprised that Ben Johnson didn't, because he's been all these little steps of doing things differently, right? Like having the most physical practice that you guys have ever seen out there. Like, I thought, just as if 1 series, 2 series, a quarter, I just thought he would continue to do things differently to, if nothing else, send the message. Again, Dan, I've said it, you and I both said, it's a race. He said it, that this ain't let's slow walk this thing. This is for real. But again, I'm not emotional over it.
Well, and also, just for context, we are recording this podcast on Monday morning, and the Bears have a late afternoon practice in Lake Forest the day after a game. That is incredibly, incredibly rare in the NFL to run out of practice. And you would assume that's for all the guys who did not play on Sunday, including QB1, who you would expect to be the, sort of the focal point of this outing this afternoon. So we'll see what they get done there, and how they kind of continue to build. I do think it's notable, Grote, that like the theme of I lost you. You went into Aaron Rodgers' darkness cave there for a second. The theme of this entire month of training camp has been Caleb Williams and everything that he is doing from the time he gets the play call in his headset to the time he takes a snap. Like that seems to be where, like, if you're making the pie chart, that's where like 88 to 90% of the coaching staff's focus has been with Caleb right now, is like handling all that stuff. Can you hear the play call? Can you understand what the play call is? Can you articulate it to the huddle in a way that is timely, efficient, and gets them ready to rock? And then can you go up there and handle everything pre-snap before the football's in your hands? And so they seem to be still in that phase, which I think has got to be jarring for Bears fans who are expecting this to be a fireworks show when the regular season begins, to understand that, we're now entering week 4 of training camp, and this still seems to be the part of the process that the Bears coaching staff is working with Caleb Williams through.
Let's talk more about Caleb and quarterbacks right now. And by the way, I'm sorry I had to flash off there. I've decided that it's better to blow my nose when I mute the screen than to do it on air. So
sorry for calling that out. It shook me. It
it's
shook
okay.
me to my core.
No, I'm glad because I enjoy explaining my process sometimes, Dan. When this is my new process. When instead of blowing my nose on YouTube or video or wherever we're airing, I've decided it might be nicer to not blow my nose, as comfortable as we are.
I love it. It's a peek behind the curtain for the TTN audience.
Hey, man, you'll get those all year on Take the North. In the Athletic, not a bad publication. I do like what the Athletic. I love the Tribune, Dan, but the Athletic, pretty damn good too.
I understand.
It's weird for me to say that to you, but I'm sorry. It's just the way I feel.
I understand.
Yeah, there is an annual article written by Mike Sando in the Athletic, pretty prominent writer. People know his name by now if you follow the NFL, and he does his quarterback tiers every year. And as he writes at the top, this article is part of the Rankings and Tiers series, an evaluation across the sport about the key players, front office, teams, franchise, and much more. Quarterback tiers results in for the 2025 season with 50 NFL coaches and executives coronating 2 first-time one QBs, and I don't want to give that away yet. But so the panel is very credible. Very credible, I think, is the best way to put it here, Dan.
That's the best part of it for me, because like there was arguments a couple of years ago when like Justin Fields made his debut in the tiers and people were like, oh, this is just one guy. And you're like, no, this is not one guy. This is one very, very connected reporter in the NFL talking to 50 coaches and executives. That's not a small sample size. That's a heavy lift. And so once you get that volume of feedback, it really tells you that you have an idea of how the league looks at these quarterbacks. And look, like the league's not always right about quarterbacks. We know that. But this is a really, really wide-reaching attempt to give you a really good understanding of how all of these starting quarterbacks size up in the league.
So let's go through it. I will build up. I'm just going to read it right from I'm going to go through the rankings here. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And, of course, there are two. Caleb Williams is on this list, of course, and Justin Fields is on this list. Mm-hmm. So let's see where they stack up. So, Dan, let's just start with Tier 1 quarterbacks, according to Mike Sando of the Almighty Athletic. Patrick Mahomes is a Tier 1 quarterback. Joe Burrow is a Tier 1 quarterback. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Matthew Stafford. Those are your Tier 1 quarterbacks. Don't got a lot of arguments. Each and every one of those guys is straight up elite in their own way.
That's the top shelf, right? Like that's what we're looking at. That's what you're aiming at. And so to get there, you have to be really damn good and you have to be really damn consistent. It's really good to see Lamar Jackson, as you noted, making his first step up to Tier 1. If you watched Lamar Jackson's season last year, you understand that dude's a Tier 1 quarterback, right? Like, how much hardware does a guy need to collect before he has the full-blown respect of the league? So that's certainly the newcomer to that tier, but very worthy.
I'm a little surprised it's his first foray into Tier 1, but good. He's there. He's in Tier 1. Tier 2. Here are your Tier 2 quarterbacks. The first quarterback listed in Tier 2, Dan, Jaden Daniels. Oh, my God. Here's the other.
Where was he drafted? Number 2?
I believe so. Yes. He was number 2 right after a guy by the name of Caleb Williams. Also in Tier 2, according to The Athletic and Mike Sando, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, of course, from Ben Johnsonsville. CJ Stroud is a Tier 2 quarterback. The always controversial evaluated quarterback, Jalen Hurts, is there. Super Bowl winner, and he's Tier 2. And I think one of the more interesting guys on this list, let me just read the last two, Baker Mayfield and Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, and Brock Purdy, all Tier 2 quarterbacks. But Baker Mayfield is interesting to me, Dan, because he kind of went from feeling like he was a bust to now making his way back up the chart, just in general in the NFL. Like, he's never been Johnny Manziel, obviously, in terms of being a straight up bust, but he wasn't what he was supposed to be. Now he's growing. Like, I'm interested in Baker Mayfield's career again. Let's put it that way. What do you think about tier 2, though, Dan?
Yeah, well, you've got a couple really notable ones on there. You have Jordan Love, obviously a division rival, Jared Goff, a division rival, and then you have that Jaden Daniels one, which I think is one that we're going to keep our eyes on in the years to come. And the comments in there from the execs are notable because there's a lot of praise for his combination of danger with his arm and his legs and his ability to process. But it seems like everyone in the league has really been struck by how calm Jaden Daniels was throughout his rookie season, how big moments didn't seem big for the kid, and how he really just put a team on his shoulders for a run deep into the playoffs last year. That is one, I think, as one executive said, he's a tier 2 with an arrow up. So like, wow, you're knocking on the door to tier 1, which is those 5 guys you just named. I'm a little bit reserved, as you've heard. If anybody that's listened to this podcast more than once knows that my Jordan Love praise is muted. I need to see more. He's been inconsistent through his time in the league. They've rewarded him like he's one of the best in football. And I think this year is going to be very telling for him in Green Bay to see if he can kind of answer some of those questions or not answer them. And then the Packers will have to figure out what that all means for them in their future.
He seemed like he was on a track a couple of years ago to be really good and then took a step back. So I think, yeah, I agree. The jury is still out would be the best way to put it. Tier 3 quarterback is what we're going to do now. That is, according to Mike Sando of The Athletic, a legitimate starter, but needs a heavier running game and or defensive component to win. A lower volume drop back passing offense suits him best. Okay, so that's just the general statement for tier 3 quarterbacks. Here they are. We're at number 15. Just so we've been through 14 quarterbacks already. Caleb has not been mentioned. Here are the tier 3 quarterbacks. They are Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers at 16. Tua Tagovailoa is at number 17, who we saw on Sunday. Trevor Lawrence. Hey, Trevor Lawrence is a tier 3 quarterback at number 18. Geno Smith at number 19 is a tier 3 quarterback. Old Bo Nix is a tier 3 quarterback at number 20. Sam Darnold is a tier 3, the new Seahawks quarterback, in case you lost track.
Yes, I did.
It's easy, man. Drake May was a third tier quarterback. And there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3 more tier 3 quarterbacks. They are at number 23, Caleb Williams is number 23. Bryce Young, 24. Kirk Cousins, 25. So there it is. Caleb Williams is a third tier quarterback, number 23 overall on this athletic list. And what it says to me, Dan, is people aren't necessarily projecting much better things for Caleb Williams in year 2, or it's just completely all based on the disorganization of last year and what's gone on early in training camp this year.
Caleb is appropriately sandwiched between Drake May and Bryce Young, 2 other young quarterbacks drafted very highly who are still trying to find their way in this league. The block quote that Sando uses with Caleb Williams is a snapshot is, you saw signs and ability, and you saw signs and ability that scare you. So that is kind of a cross-section of what the league saw from a quarterback last year who didn't get rid of the ball quickly enough. Obviously, we've talked about the 68 sacks ad nauseum. You have to figure out kind of how much you're willing to live with the negative plays that come with his artistic gifts, right? And I think that's where Ben Johnson is trying to figure this out, where I think he's been very hard on Caleb since he got here about understanding, like, we got to reduce the number of times that you decide to get outside and try to make things happen on your own. Like, you're not going to be able to live that way for very long. Very similar conversation that we had about Justin Fields a few years ago with his running ability. It's the same thing with Caleb's on the move passing, where he almost leans on that as a crutch too often when there's things to be done as an NFL quarterback in terms of just seeing the play, being quick and decisive and understanding what you're seeing. This is a head coach talking about Caleb Williams. He says he's definitely a tier 1 talent. I just think it's going to take him longer than Jaden Daniels. He's not playing fast right now. There's something there, but his process to me was alarming watching the tape. So the processing part is something that you're going to have to get better at. A lot of this marries up with some of the feedback I got talking to people at the Combine in February, whereas it's just this idea of like, okay, like the talent box is checked. The arm talent box is checked. The off-script playmaking box is checked. Now comes year 2, and the ability to show the prerequisites of playing the position at a high level, which is all the things that we've talked about, the timing, the rhythm, the understanding of the play, all of it that comes into it. I will say this, and I'll turn it right back over to you. This better be, for the Bears' sake, the last time that Caleb Williams shows up on tier 3 in Mike Sando's annual quarterback tiers project, because if he's still here next year, we have hit a little bit of a snag with the projected ascent of Caleb Williams under Ben Johnson.
I agree. I agree with that. It's got to get better, and I want it to start looking better in training camp, and everybody needs to see that. It doesn't have to be superstar level. It doesn't have to be the generational elite stuff that we saw at USC. It just has to look good over multiple days, multiple series, and dare I say, eventually multiple games. So okay, so that's where Caleb is. Let me give you tier 4. This is a tier 4 quarterback. Could be an unproven player, not enough information for voters to classify, it says in parentheses, or a veteran who ideally would not start 17 games. The top of the list is, the mighty have fallen. Russ Wilson is a tier 4 quarterback playing for the Giants. Again, if you needed the refresher on where everybody is. He's number 26. Justin Fields, New York Jets, is the number 27 quarterback, considered a tier 4 QB. The other tier 4 guys, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, you ain't proved nothing yet, J.J. McCarthy. Daniel Jones, with all due respect to the McCarthy family. Daniel Jones of the Colts, of course. God, I don't know if I would have gotten that at a trivia question. Where's Daniel Jones? He's with the Colts. Joe Flacco with the Browns. Everybody's with the Browns. At number 31, he's living a good tier 4 lifestyle, though. Anthony Richardson, number 32 on tier 4. Talk about a precipitous fall. And then Spencer Rattler of the Saints, number 33, a tier 4 quarterback, Dan.
I'm just going to bring this up on the Fields discussion, which we've had ad nauseum on this podcast over the years. The first sentence of Sando's thumbnail is Fields peaked among tiers voters as a low tier 3 guy entering 2023. So that was his peak, was as a low tier 3 guy. This is just a reminder to those who still get their panties in a bunch over why the Bears moved on from Justin Fields. Because to win championships in this league, you need somebody that is better than a peak at a low tier 3 guy.
Okay.
And more prevalent in tier 4. Justin Fields is seen as a tier 4 guy who's super dangerous as a runner. And if paired with a coordinator who can maximize those gifts, has an opportunity to have the level of success that low tier 3, high tier 4 quarterbacks can have. But I think the league has spoken for several years across 3 teams for Justin Fields on what he isn't, and he's not going to be the engine of multiple Super Bowl runs. And so that's where he is on this list. And it's not surprising at all. Everything that listed from these coaches and executives in the thumbnail is consistent with what we talked about during Justin Fields' entire time in Chicago. And we'll see if he's able to do something in New York with a new start and a new coaching staff and a new lease on life. I saw on, I think it was Friday night when the Jets played their preseason game, Justin Fields got loose for a touchdown run, and Twitter was exploding over Justin Fields touchdown run. And you're like, yep, another box that was checked in Sharpie long time ago. Justin Fields can get out and get on the run and score touchdowns for you.
Hey, man.
It's just when you put the football in his hands and tell him to be a pure passer in the fourth quarter with the game on the line, he fails more often than he succeeds, far more often than he succeeds. And that's who he is. And so I think the Jets fans are slowly going to realize that, yes, the adrenaline rushes are super fun.
Yeah.
But there are limitations to this show.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I would say that 2022 season, as spectacular as it was for Justin Fields, I'm into the argument that we saw some of the most exciting things since Devin Hester in that year. It didn't matter. You know what I mean? Ultimately, it didn't matter for the quarterback position. So Justin Fields probably appropriately placed, but I'm with you. I root for Justin Fields, and hey, the dude's making a boatload of money to be a starting quarterback for the New York Jets. Dan, about time to get out of here. Any other things that you want to share with us before we get the heck
I do.
out of
here? I have half news for you today.
Oh,
and I've chosen Take the North to give half news today on
here it
Monday,
is.
August 11th. So this is a little bit, and we can get into a little bit more of this later in the week and into next week. But that 24-24 tie at Soldier Field yesterday was the last game that I will cover for the Chicago Tribune on the Bears beat. This will be my last week at the Chicago Tribune after 12 years at the Chicago Tribune. It is a bittersweet moment for me. I cannot share what's next. and others around me know I will not be going far, and they will not do anything to take the North or anything that goes into my coverage of the Bears. But this is it, and it's a strange moment for me, Grote, because this was kid from Chicago growing up and always wanting to work at the Chicago Tribune and getting the dream job. And I will tell you that on my first day in the job in September of 2013, taking the water taxi to the Wrigley building and walking up those stairs and seeing Chicago Tribune on the side of the Chicago Tribune Tower. Like, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it, because it's a career arrival moment where I stood outside there for 5 minutes and just like soaked it in. Like, this is a huge opportunity and this is a lot of fun. And insanely, after 12 years, it's coming to an end here this month. And it's kind of hard to believe.
Well, a couple things. Selfishly, that's all I wanted to know when I heard, because I do know what's up. I'm not going to act like I don't know what's going on with Dan. So my first thought was, oh God, we're not going to lose Dan, are we? So I'm thrilled that you are still going to be doing this podcast with us, because you are absolutely essential to this podcast. So I'm thrilled about that. Also, and congratulations too. Yeah, I felt it yesterday, man. Outside of the locker room, as you and I just covered the game, we were outside the locker room like we always are, and I could just kind of you were just sort of dizzied because you were waiting to go into the locker room to cover your final game for your hometown paper, the big market, your big market gig. And Dan's had a ton of jobs, came from Minnesota to take the Bears gig. So I actually felt that for you yesterday, and how sort of complicated that moment was before we even went into the locker room yesterday.
I'll take about 60 seconds here to say why it was complicated. It's I don't know that anybody has ever worked with Brad Biggs longer than I have. And so, like, you have this routine and this like rhythm to life. And after the game, it's, going down in the tunnel and putting a head together with Biggsy and being like, okay, what are you focusing on? Where can I steer? How can we use this post game productively together? And like doing that for the last time with a guy who's shown me a ton about covering the beat in an NFL world. It was difficult, honestly. You're like, man, like this has been a really fun 12 years and a good run. And like you're having that last discussion about, I mean, it's a 24-24 tie. What all are we doing in there? Right. Like, it's not like any of the games that we've covered over 12 years, but like, it's the end of an era, and it's tough. And like, I could do an entire episode on all the things that I've experienced over these 12 years and the friendships I've made and all that. But it was just a moment yesterday where you just felt awkward and uncomfortable for no real reason, but kind of for a reason, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. No, I get it, Dan. And, hopefully on our next episode or one of the subsequent episodes, you'll obviously be able to fill in the blank.
It'll probably be next week where the blank gets filled in. Yeah.
All right. So Dan will reveal next week where he will be landing, but it will be in the city of Chicago, covering the Chicago Bears, and on this very podcast,
and I will
Take the North.
Tell you that my last little shot for the Tribune I think it will launch at the end of this week, but it is a Ben Johnson piece that I've had a lot of fun putting together. And so that will be a nice little, okay, I'm out. Peace.
Okay.
Pieces.
Okay. So I just want to make it clear. I don't need to call Mark Potash to have him replace you for the podcast. I don't have to call Potsy. Because he's ready. He's ready.
No, I know he's ready. He's ready. We should have him on soon. He needs to let some things off his chest here in August, and so we need to get him on as well.
He wanted to replace Haugh. He was mad at me for about 2 weeks that I got the gig. So
yeah, I get it.
We'll talk to Potsy soon, and we'll hear more from Dan. But in the meantime, I'm just thrilled that you're staying here, and where Dan is going is probably bigger and better.
Put it in our Twitter mentions. Wrong answers only on where you think I'm headed.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt about it. But we will reveal soon, if it's not already out there in the DNA and the atmosphere. If you do some really strong reporting and you have sources, you might be able to figure it out. But we'll keep it secret for now. And so for Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune, for Adam Studzinski of 670 The Score. I think Adam Studzinski is remaining our executive producer. I sure hope he is. I am Mark Grote saying thank you for listening and watching the Take the North podcast.
Great talk. See you out there.